I'm Diana DeRosa from the EQUUS Film Festival. We have a film festival every year in New York, and then we do tour stops around the nation and around the world. And right now we are in Camden, South Carolina, and we're doing a director's panel on thoroughbred racing in South Carolina. And so I'm going to let each of my participants introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about either their organization or their film. So starting with you, Donna.
My name is Donna Freyer. I run Custom Care Equine here in Camden, South Carolina, and also manage Fast Women LLC. And we have a movie in the festival called Mini Mambo. So I wear a few hats today. My main business is Custom Care Equine, where we break and train thoroughbred horses to go around the country and race.
Donna, a little bit about the movie.
Well, I shouldn't say this with all these directors around, but we didn't really set out to make a movie. We had a person handling all our media, and she said somewhere along the line, why don't we just put this together and document your journey so you all have it, 10 years from now to look at. So we did, and it turned out great, and Judy and took it to New York, and it's a great story. So here we are.
And moving on down the line.
I'm Judy Ferrell. I'm board chair of the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation of South Carolina. We care for off-track thoroughbreds once their racing careers are done. And Donna also has an additional hat. She is a member of our board as well.
My name is Kingsley. I am a lifelong horseman, a professional horseman for all of my adult life. First as a steeplechase jockey, then as a blacksmith, now as a trainer, although I still wear all of those same hats to some degree, depending on what time of day or when during the week you find me. My movie is the real life story of Sunshine Numbers, which was a horse that I trained about 5 years ago, and the owners, George and Sue Sensor, commissioned a movie to be made about him, and it has many different layers to it, the film. It is about the success of one racehorse in steeplechasing and how he got there, and beyond that, some of the lives that he touched, some of the obstacles that he overcame to be successful. And to me, it's a very personal story because it's about again, from my perspective, about how a horse can change your life and bring out some of your more human qualities and strengthen, and as well as suggest maybe you might need to work on some different areas. But is there as a spiritual guide? That was my part of the story, but again, you've got some different layers to the story from the owner's perspective, from certainly the different jockeys that rode him, from my perspective, and I think that the common thread is how a horse can touch so many people in many different ways.
I'm Catherine French. I'm a professional photographer by trade. Basically, all I do is steeplechase photography and a few kids here and there. And I'm also the executive director of the National Steeplechase Museum here in Camden, which houses the only collection in the country of steeplechase memorabilia in history.
I'm Marsha Hewitt. I'm the equine marketing specialist with the South Carolina Department of Agriculture. And people ask me, oh, do you sell horses? No, I sell the horse industry. The Thoroughbred Association is one of many, many groups that I work with. And I must say, probably the most successful and the most underappreciated industry in the state. I am working to sort of try to change that, to make people more aware of the thoroughbred industry and bridge that gap between horse people and non-horse people, because the non-horse people and the politicians do not have a clue what goes on in the world of thoroughbred racing.
This panel is about thoroughbred racing in South Carolina, so I want to sort of touch on that approach a little bit from each of you. How do you think you embrace with what you're doing? How does that embrace South Carolina? And how is racing in South Carolina different from if you were to compare it to other states? Your thoughts on that. So I just want you to bring a personal perspective to this. Each of you just going down the line, you can start at any end that you want or in any order.
I have the microphone, so I'm going to take that question.
How did you do that?
South Carolina historically has been a winter training ground as well as a resting ground for horses that make the rest of their campaign and their career on the racetrack in the states where they have pari-mutuel wagering. So there are a lot of operations like Donna's, like mine, that prep babies for the racetrack and a life of racing. There are other stables that focus more on steeplechase horses. There are stables that do a little bit of both. That's my stable. I have babies and prep work as well as some layups, as well as steeplechase horses. We do some travel and racing in the summertime. South Carolina is such an ideal place to base out of because of the weather. The climate is so good for the horses. You have a year-round change in the weather to where they go through all of their natural cycles, in that they have a winter, spring, summer, fall, and I believe that's best for a horse to stay on a natural rhythm. The footing is really good here. It's very sandy footing. We're well located to have access to a lot of other places around the country. A lot of the tracks on the East Coast you can work well out of here. So I think I've probably said enough about all that.
I actually do want to ask you one more question. Talk a little bit about how you think your film is going to help thoroughbred racing in South Carolina.
Well, my film deals specifically with steeplechasing, and steeplechasing is the only kind of horse racing. I shouldn't say that. In fairness, there's a couple of young horse trials around the state, but it's the only horse racing for purse money, the established, recognized, say, horse racing in South Carolina. How will it help South Carolina? It shines a light on our racing industry in a positive way, and I'd love it if it got some people excited about steeplechase racing and wanted to see more of that circuit and see more about how you turn a $5,000 horse into a $250,000 horse, and just get excited about the whole prospect of what it is in racing that excites us, and developing a good horse and what that involves. And the whole process takes time, it takes money obviously, and it takes a lot of passion and perseverance and enthusiasm, and hopefully if my film could seed some of that in somebody, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, now it's time to let go of that mic, and you can now pass it on to whomever you want.
Well, when you talk about horse racing, there is an after career for horses. There are 30,000 thoroughbreds bred in the United States every year. Many of them make it to the track, whether it's flat track or steeplechase. Their average career on the track, if they're a flat horse, is about 40 years. It's a little longer if they're a steeplechase horse. The average lifespan of a thoroughbred is 20-something years. So what happens for the next 16 to 18 years is critical. Many people involved in racing today don't have farms where they can retire their horses. They want to take good care of them. They want to assure that their aftercare is adequately financed, adequately cared for. And so at the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, we have a unique program based at Wateree River Correctional Institute here, where we have, at one farm there are over 100 horses, and at our particular facility there are about 24. And we train inmates to care for them. So they not only learn skills that will help them succeed in life and in jobs in the future, they learn to care for the horses, and it's a synergy that really transforms both of them. And we then ensure that those horses have a safe and secure retirement for as long as they live. And we also work to rehome the horses that are suitable for rehoming to second careers or to people that just have farms and are willing to take them on and raise them, and look after them for the rest of their life. So it's really a wonderful cooperative effort, and we could not do it without the help of the Department of Corrections and the vast efforts, because we're 100% volunteer run and volunteer financed. So we couldn't do it without all of that.
Fabulous. What a great thing that you do for
We're excited about it.
the thoroughbred industry in South Carolina. Okay, Donna, your turn.
I think the important thing people need to realize, which we all realize, is we don't have gambling in the state. And people think we do, but if we did, we could fund a lot more of these things. I mean, we're all self-funded. Like the Thoroughbred Retirement used to get a match from the state, but they don't anymore. We don't get any promotional help for our industry, as like Florida and Kentucky do. But the educational fact I should bring up, I mean, that's why I started Fast Women as a women's racing partnership, which is mostly women from Camden. And you would think in Camden, there are a lot of non-horsey people, which is hard to believe. We assume Camden is a horsey town. But, 30 women, I mean, 20 of them didn't know there was even an industry going on that started at 5:30 in the morning. There was hundreds of people working away, supporting the economy of Camden and other cities in the state of South Carolina. And they were shocked when we went to the races and they were watching the race here, they were shocked that they could not bet on the race. I said, well, get on the phone and call your politician, your favorite ones. So again, then we could help fund things like the Thoroughbred Retirement. Look at when we take horses from babies, we can take them all the way, like you said, to the end of their lives here, which is quite a feat for one small town.
Let's talk about your film a little bit and how you feel that can help thoroughbred racing in South Carolina.
I just think people can see how accessible it is if you put a group of people together. That's why partnerships have become so popular, because for a small amount of money, you can enjoy the thrill. And I made no promises about results or making any money. It was all social and educational. But many of the women, when both fillies won, we have 2 fillies, and when the filly won, some of these women were like, they were like, I've never felt like this before. It's just an amazing thing. And they actually saw her come from the sale as a yearling and watched her every week, and so saw her develop. So it's like seeing your child develop. I mean, then they saw her go to the races, and they've done the whole cycle. She got hurt, she came back, she rehabbed, and now she's going to go be a broodmare and have babies. So it's a full cycle that they went through.
And I have to say, I've spoken to some of these Fast Women, and the enthusiasm in this group is just out of this world. I mean, they really are excited to be part of this sort of syndication and be able to see this whole process. I mean, they just love it. They love it. It's a time for them to get together. It's a time for them to get excited about what's happening. So good job. We can pass that mic right on down
It's been so long since you asked the question, I've forgotten what the question is.
Okay, so the topic of this director's panel is thoroughbred racing in South Carolina. So I want you to talk a bit about what you do and how you feel that helps promote thoroughbred racing in South Carolina, or why thoroughbred racing is so important in South Carolina. And just sort of connect the dots there for people, why it is so good and so strong here.
Okay, well, I think there are a couple of things that are that I do that I feel promote racing. I do and have done for the last 30 years a steeplechase calendar, which is on the market, which I give to a lot of people who are not horsey related in any way. And I've got people all over the country that I've never met that for 30 years have called me and asked me to send them a calendar. I have no idea what they look like, and I have no idea what they do, but they're not involved in racing. They just saw the calendar at some point. So that's my little promotional gig as a photographer. As the executive director of the Steeplechase Museum, I try to educate people who come in. A lot of people in Camden, you'd be surprised, have never been in the Steeplechase Museum. But when they come in there, they're like, wow, this is really great. And there's a whole story in there, and it's fun. And people come in and they look around, they watch a movie, they get an idea of what exactly the horse industry has meant to this, not only to Camden and South Carolina, but to this country. And I think that one of the things that we as horse people need to are going to have to learn to deal with is the change of the mindset of the owners now. The owners seem to, because they spend so much money on the babies themselves, they feel like they can't give them the same amount of time that they used to give them in development. And I mean, I can remember 10, 15 years ago that horses would come down here in this fall of the year and have December and part of January off and basically start back. They just had a little letdown period. And a lot of horses came down here to train over the winter. We're not getting those numbers anymore unless they're babies to be broken. People don't feel like they can, because of the cost of training and because of the cost of the horse, the initial cost of the horse, that they can give them that much time. And I think that's one thing that we kind of have to pull together as a community and try to figure out how we can attract people to come back to Camden, bring their horses, let them train down here where they can go someplace different every single day and be turned out part of the day, and go back to that mindset where the horse was number one and that was the most important thing.
The horse can be a horse.
Yeah.
And Marsha?
Okay.
Catherine, I'm glad you asked the question because I had forgotten also what it was about. And also, I want some of your calendars. I want lots of your calendars. I want to sell them or give them away or as promotional material. What I do with the Department of Agriculture, I'm a staff of one, trying to cover the entire state and every discipline in the state. So you can imagine I'm stretched pretty thin. But I've taken on the thoroughbreds as a special project this year because I think it's such an important industry. Our department, I have talked the higher powers into having a booth at every single race in the state this year. Aiken, Ellery, Camden, Kingsley, Charleston, and then Camden and Aiken again. To promote all the races. A lot of folks, and this is hard to believe, I was in Ellery last year and I was talking to a lady who had this big fancy hat on, and I said, oh, you should wear that to Camden. And she said, what's in Camden? And she's, an hour away and did not know about the racing here. Of course, this was a non-horse person, and this is the problem that we have. The non-horse people don't know what is going on with the horse industry. So I will have a booth, as I say, at every single race this year, and I will be giving out promotional materials to the general public to educate them on horse racing. What you have to do to get people involved in something is you have to entertain them. Our society wants to be entertained. Oh, it's fun. We go to races and eat and party and have a good time and bet $2 on each horse that's not legal. You have to educate people so they understand this is an industry. This is not a one day thing. It's a lifestyle for the people who train, all the jobs that are generated, the grooms, the jockeys, the backside folks, the haulers, the feed people. It's a lifestyle. So you educate the general public. And then you need to engage them, which is what I want to do by giving away a lot of these materials. Things on the Jockey Club has a lot of promotional materials on first-time racehorse owners. I think would be great. People don't know what's involved in owning a racehorse. The common, I don't know if it's a misconception, like, oh, you have to be fabulously rich to own a racehorse. Well, no, there are a lot of kind of ordinary folks that can own a piece of a racehorse, like Donna's folks. I'm sure all of them aren't millionaires, but they're having fun with their piece of the horse. And I think that's a great way to engage people in the industry, is let them see that there is something out there that just ordinary folks can participate in. It's not simply a wealthy man's sport. So that's my mission this year, is to promote thoroughbred racing across the state and even maybe go across the border into North Carolina. Have booths up there at the Queen's Cup and trying to let people know South Carolina has a very, very vibrant racing industry, and we want people to support it. So we're going outside of our state to pull people in to come to our races. But what we want to do in the calendar at each of the races, not the program is put a calendar in listing each race, the date, and their website, so people can say, oh, we're at the Carolina Cup, oh, the Charleston race is next weekend, I didn't know that, and they can go to the website and see it, and then, oh, the Queen's Cup is coming up, oh, so that there's a continuity to the races. It's not just fragmented one race at a time, but it's a statewide, actually it's national, but statewide industry that we want to support.
You know, one of the things that you said, Marsha, was engage. And nowadays, as I watch the world change and not change with social media, I want to pick your brains a little bit and see if you're using most social media, and if so, how. Some people think it's the life force behind promoting your company, and others don't even want to get involved with it. So, Marsha, let's start with you. Do you use social media? If so, how do you use it, and what's the results that you're seeing from it?
I use it very poorly because I'm not very tech savvy. Our department uses social media. It has exploded in our department. I'm just not tech savvy enough to take advantage of it. But yes, it is absolutely the wave of the future. I'll be going next week to the Governor's Conference on Tourism. They always have seminars on social media, how to do it correctly, get the maximum usage, and I plan to go to several of those seminars so I can do a better job with social media, because that is absolutely the way to go.
Okay, pass the mic.
I can speak for the racing office at here in Camden, and we have 2 young girls working in there who are very good at the social media, and we are right now trying to develop a Snapchat.
Explain a little bit for those people that don't know what Snapchat is.
Well,
as best you can, explain what Snapchat is.
It's an app on your phone, and when you click on this app, it shows your face, and then you hold down, you put your finger on your face, and then all these different kind of outfits for your face show up. Like you can be a puppy dog, or you can be a fox, or you can open your mouth. It says open your mouth, and you open your mouth, and all this ribbon starts coming out of your mouth. It's just hilarious. You just have to see it. But anyway, we're trying to come up with a Snapchat thing for the Carolina Cup so that it would make somebody could go on there and either be a jockey or a horse, you know, whatever. But those girls are they're really good at it, and I use it a lot in the Steeplechase Museum as well to get my events out there, and it's just a great tool. It's so easy, and you can post pictures and do videos, and it's a great tool, and it's it doesn't cost you anything.
And posting pictures is an important part of it.
Yes.
People will stop for pictures, and then they'll read. So that's always a good thing.
You might want to pass that. And maybe do that.
At the TRFSC we have a website and we have a Facebook page. I spent 20 years in marketing, so Marsha and I share a marketing background. The funny thing is that I worked for the hospital here in Camden, and one of our first ad campaigns featured Sunshine Numbers. He was the first steeplechase horse I was personally introduced to in Camden, although I grew up in Kentucky and around horse racing, so it was an easy transition. But he was actually featured in one of them, and then later on, a second campaign that we did featured Donna's barn, and not Minnie Mambo, because I think she was already at the track at that point, but several of her horses. So it all works, but we know the power of social media, and particularly in getting our story out, because a lot of people don't understand the end result of racing, which is that we need to find second careers, we need to find good solid homes, we need to find a future for these horses.
I'm learning as I go. I do have a website, which I did embrace a long time ago, and it's a great tool. It's easy when a prospective owner calls. I give them the website address, you can go see pictures, and like I said, pictures are worth, it's unbelievable. When people can see what you're talking about, it just makes more of an impact. And then they get all the contact info, because on the phone, people, it's better if they have it in print in front of them. And then when we have Minnie Mambo with 30 women, it was much easier to communicate and post pictures on Facebook. So everybody could go to Facebook. And the women learned, I mean, there were some, other people that learned how to use the social media through the fast women. So it works both ways. Horses can teach people.
And actually, that's a good point that you're making right there. You know, in social media, it's not about just you, just the organization. What you want to do is engage everybody that's following you to also share and spread the word and do that social media. So every one of those fast women, you want to encourage to do whatever social media they're doing.
And the phone, I mean, like this morning, I just took a little video of some babies jogging across the field and sent it to an owner, and he was thrilled. I mean, do you have, like Catherine said, you have to engage the owners and get the owners to, so they can see more, progress in person, so to speak. They'll be, happier to have their horses here.
Okay, we can pass the mic to Sunshine Man.
Oh, and if I can, for us, it's really important because our facility is actually on a prison. So it's a little more challenging to get people there all the time to come see the horses. So using Facebook and social media to post horses engages them when they can't physically be there to see the horses. So it's wonderful for us.
No, they skipped me, not by mistake, but because I don't really do social media. I don't have anything intelligent to add.
I figured that out, but that's why I wanted you to actually get in part of this conversation. Why don't you engage in social media? Is it something that intimidates you? Is it something you feel you don't have the time for? So to share from your perspective, because I know the world around you has said to you social media is something that you should consider. So talk about it from your perspective, why you haven't gotten involved with it.
I haven't figured out what I do, how it could be packaged in a digital kind of way for the masses. I've been used countless times for marketing and for promotion, and I'm happy to do that, and what I do has been used that way. My relationship to what I do is very hands-on. I do use technology to communicate with my owners, not as much as I probably should, truthfully, but as far as social media is concerned, I'm I guess a little old-fashioned, and I just am personal about what I do, and I'm a hands-on horse person, and that's where I put my focus, and I'm not necessarily interested in sharing it with the whole world, and I focus on where I am and what I'm doing and the people that I'm working for, and not opening up my whole life to the rest of the world.
Right. You know, we at the EQUUS Film Festival, Lisa Dushin's the founder of the EQUUS Film Festival, and she does a phenomenal job with the social media. She really gets into the engaging, and we do contests online. We've got close to 14,000 followers. So, and personally, a couple of things that I like to pass along is, one, if you don't have time, lots of times if you get enough followers, they'll do the engaging for you. So it doesn't mean that you have to spend a lot of time. If you even post just a couple of days a week. The other thing is, when you're doing marketing, always remember to focus on what's going to be interesting. Sometimes what happens, we try to sell too much. And people, the minute you say something about selling, it immediately puts a wall up. So it's the fun facts, it's the articles. We use American Horse Publications because we can do 3 press releases a month that we can send out. But when I talk to people that do the press releases, I always say, educate, inform, don't, and then at the bottom put the boilerplate that you're the one that has done this. Remember that you want people to actually read those articles, and if it's all about sales, they're not going to read them. But if now they know that, for instance, there's one at an Eastern Hay Company in New Jersey, and the first press release I saw was all about sales, and I said, no, you can't do this. Create a section, start talking about hay, start talking about storage. She started to do that, and people started to pick up the article. Then they start to get credibility. You get credibility that you know what you're talking about, and that can help you. So social media can be fun. Articles can be about learning and learning something that doesn't necessarily sell your product, but it does. In the end, it sells because it sells your knowledge. All right, so we're going to sort of close out now. I want to ask one more question of everybody. You know, it's clear that working with horses is a passion, and it's also hard work. It's long hours. Sometimes we wonder if we're getting back all the time and energy that we put into it. So that's my question to you. Why do you do it, and why is that passion part of your life? So a very simple question and answer. We're going to have that as our final question of the day.
Most horse people are horse addicts. It's in your blood, you can't help it. From the time you were a baby, you were horse crazy, and it just never goes away. That was my case. I grew up on a farm. We had mules that my father farmed with. I begged him for a horse, finally got one when I was, 5th grade. Didn't know a thing about horses, thought I did. Went off to college and learned that I really didn't know anything about horses, but was introduced there to thoroughbreds and phenomenally good riding instructors. And I've ridden, I galloped horses on the track in Southern Pines. That was a huge education. Showed hunters. I've shown Arabian English pleasure. I've showed walking horses. My husband did not care for thoroughbreds, so we went in another direction, showing gaited horses. And it's just been a huge part of my life from the time I was in grammar school. But like most horse people, you also have to have a way to earn a living. So I've been a journalist my whole life as a profession, and horses, say as a hobby. My husband was a professional trainer, and he was wonderful. But I've been a magazine editor, newspaper writer, and photographer. But with the Department of Agriculture, that has allowed me to combine a lot of my passion in background in journalism into promoting horses, which is, we're all horse addicts, we know that. We don't apologize for it. But you want to share that passion with the rest of the world, and you want people to understand why you love horses, what it is about them that just makes you feel so wonderful and so complete. So,
At the EQUUS Film Festival on the first day, we did a welcome reception. And we had close to 100 filmmakers, artists, and authors there. And we let each one of them get up and say a couple of minutes of how you all introduced yourself in the beginning. And just to hear those stories, and just to know that we were giving them a platform to share what they had to offer was such a heartwarming feeling. So I get it.
It was an easy decision for me to give up a teaching job and buy a camera that I couldn't afford and become self-employed for the rest of my life. That was the easiest decision I ever made in my life because I was young and foolish. But it worked out great for me, and I fell in love with steeplechasing and flat racing, and not only the horses but the people involved in it, and that's become my life.
I grew up in horses. Both my parents were jockeys. We grew up on ponies. We grew up fox hunting. I grew up racing. I grew up to be good at it. I feel like I have a purpose. I connect very well with the horses, and for me personally, it's been a story of how to make a living doing all the things that I love to do. While on another level, again, I feel like our purpose here as humans is spiritual evolution, and the horses are always there leading me down that path as well. And I love the time that I spend with horses.
As you said, for us it's an addiction. I saw my first horse when I was 2, and I was gone from then. And I rode when I was growing up in Kentucky, and it was around the track a lot, around racehorses. Kind of fell away from it when I moved to South Carolina because there was not as large a racing industry. And when I came to work here, I got involved with the steeplechase community, and then had the good fortune to run into the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation and got just as smitten with that. So it's been great fun to make it full circle and be able to finish out this way.
I did not grow up in a horse family, but I've been addicted since I was 5 also. I grew up, my parents were like, one day she'll get over it, one day she'll get over it. Well, so here I am still making a living, and every day I wake up and I said, I'm still here, I'm surviving, I'm making a living. And it's just every day, there's definitely highs and lows in the industry, but every day there's some little thing that gives you a complete satisfaction. So I think that's why I'm still here.
Well, just listening to your stories, that really is, that was for me the favorite part of this this whole thoroughbred racing in South Carolina. Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing at this tour stop in Camden, South Carolina for the EQUUS Film Festival. And thanks again for being willing to share everything that you shared today.